I'm Richard Vermack, your host for today's annual East Bay celebration of the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. I would like to start with a welcome from the chairs of the Abraham Lincoln Brigade Archives, our national organization. Let's hear from Maria and Sebastian.
Thanks, Richard, and thanks to you and to everyone who's helped put this wonderful event together. Welcome, everyone. I'm Sebastian Faber, Chair of ALBA's Board of Governors.
And I am Maria Hernandez Ojeda, Vice Chair.
As I'm sure you can imagine, working for ALBA is a real privilege. As our motto says, we teach history to inspire activism and to uphold human rights.
But to carry forth the legacy of those who first stood up to fascism is also a heavy responsibility, especially now when that legacy seems more relevant than at any other moment since World War II. We keep it alive through our magazine, The Volunteer, our website at alba-valve.org, through our film screenings, speaker series, and programs like these.
We also work with hundreds of middle and high school teachers every year to make sure that the story of the Lincoln Brigade reaches those young people who, after all, are the future of this country.
Exactly, Sebastian. And we know that there are many worthy causes these days that ask for your support. But if you believe in anti-fascism, if you believe in education, please consider making a tax-deductible donation to help us keep up, or better, even expand our fight against fascism in all its guises. Mil gracias anticipadas. Salud.
Salud.
Thank you, Maria and Sebastian, and thank you, ALBA, for all the support, making this event and other activities you produce happen. At last year's event, Isabel Allende warned about the perilous times ahead and the challenge to democracy presented by Trump, recalling the terrible times during Franco's dictatorship in Spain and Pinochet in Chile. She warned that it was threatening to happen here. We survived this time around, but it was close. Biden won the election, saved by a blue wave in southern states, brought on by organizing efforts of African Americans like Stacey Abrams in Atlanta. This year's Puffin Award went to an organization in Jackson, Mississippi, led by another African American woman, June Gibson, whose organization, My Brother's Keeper, is leading the struggle for health care equality in the South. In his keynote speech, the distinguished speaker, Robin Kelly, will explain how My Brother's Keeper is one of many groups transforming the South. He draws parallels between the promises of the Spanish Republic and of Reconstruction, and talks about how African American Lincoln vets equated European fascism with American racism. But first, we'll start with a cultural presentation, a conversation between Barbara Dane and Bruce Barthol about activism and the power of music. Before COVID, our annual events featured programs telling the story of the Lincoln Brigade through Spanish Civil War songs. Those programs were the product of Bruce Barthol, former music director of the San Francisco Mime Troupe, who wrote and performed in these musical reviews, along with prominent progressive musicians, frequently Barbara Dane. Those performances were so successful that Bruce regularly toured Europe, singing Spanish Civil War ballads. Here's a photo of Bruce and Barbara from our 2010 event at the Freight and Salvage Coffee House in Berkeley. During the conversation, we'll hear some music from that event. Barbara grew up in Detroit in the 1940s. While marching for racial equality one day, she strummed a guitar and saw the demonstration come alive. At that moment, she became hooked on the power of music to inspire and bring people together. She has sung with everyone from Louis Armstrong to Bob Dylan. Now in her 90s, Barbara is a grande dame of activist musicians. She's the subject of the upcoming documentary, The 9 Lives of Barbara Dane, by filmmaker Maureen Gosling, to be released next summer. We're going to show you a few scenes from the film. Then the conversation with Bruce and Barbara and Robin Kelly will follow. Now let's see the clips.
When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun.
This is a small portion of my FBI file that is quite amusing to me. Am I a troublemaker? I made them a lot of trouble. These people went to a lot of trouble. I mean, and what was I doing? I was simply living my life, you know, and doing what a normal person would do if they could find the time and the energy, which would be to look at the world and see what needs fixing and get out there and try to work on that. Somehow, big trouble.
We shall not be moved.
Did you know that those were made specially for Barbara so that she could raise money to go to the Freedom Summer caravan of artists and musicians that went down to Mississippi in 1964 for voter registration? And yeah.
No, we'll never. I just thought, well, why would I want to stand up in front of a bunch of people singing something and I don't even care about the words to, shaking them maracas, you know, wearing a low-cut dress, when I could be out here changing the world with these other people.
And I ain't gonna study, I ain't gonna study,
Irwin and I both were just raging inside about the war because a big escalation had just been taking place. They were identified in this report as having recently organized a musical festival in Carnegie Hall as a protest against the Vietnam War. And that was the Singing for Peace that Irwin and I and a few others organized. I'd say it was the first big cultural response to the Vietnam War. To have it here was, for us, was a very important thing because it gave validity. That's right. It's real. It's not some Martians landing protesting the war. It's Americans. And in this place, it's as American as you can get.
That's right.
Look
at all the people.
Sure. But everybody had to do a very brief piece because it's 60 different people to put on. Gonna let nobody turn me round. Gonna keep on walking. Keep on talking, walking up to freedom land. Oh, I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, walking up to freedom land. Oh, I'm gonna keep on walking.
So you were a kid when the Spanish Civil War was raging.
Yeah, I was too young to know anything about it, but I did see the newsreels in the movies. I thought, this is, madness, but that's when I first heard of the brigades. In fact, when I was a kid in the AYD and the Communist Party and other, whatever I could find of organizations that were raising hell with the system. And we played the music a lot. We played the old 78s. You've seen those 78s?
Yeah, I've got them.
You've got them, yes. Pretty wobbly and pretty scratchy, but they sure did grab our psyche as kids.
So you also went to Spain to perform while Franco was still there.
Oh, yes, I did. After hearing about all this horrible stuff that was going on and wondering, how the people are managing. How are they confronting living under a dictator like Franco? But,
this was the early 70s, or?
I think so, yeah. When I was invited. It was made clear that I had to send all of my songs that I planned to perform in translated form so the censor could check the meaning of my songs. Well, I had a friend who was a translator at the UN. He suggested, very wisely, that they translate songs that I didn't plan to sing, Pop Goes the Weasel or whatever, something innocuous. When it came time to show them those translations, it would be these nothing songs. But when it came time to sing them, of course, I did the real thing. Well, the first concert was in the university. We were driving to the place. It was dark, and Julia pointed out that up there on the ridge around the campus, she said, see those two lights with the cigarettes? That's a signal from the friendly Guardia Civil. They're on our side, and we can go in now. Okay, so we go in the school. It's totally dark, quiet. What the hell? So we're going down into the cellar of this university building, and down, and it seemed like forever. And then the door opens, and there's a whole room packed with students, absolutely quiet. Okay, now it's time for me to sing. So they said, don't clap, do this, the finger snap thing. Yeah. And so I had to get used to that. I'd sing the song, and they'd all go, and so I sang all the righteously revolutionary songs I could pack in, and they loved it very much.
And just because he's human, he doesn't want a pistol to his head. He wants no servants under him and no boss over his head. So left 2, 3, so left 2, 3, to the work that we must do. March on in the Workers' United Front, for you are a worker too.
Those Lincoln Brigade songs grabbed me and took me away with them. And Ronnie and I both were singing them on one of the shows. She said, I love to sing those songs because they make me feel powerful. And I said, you're absolutely right. They make you feel powerful. That's what they're for. And they sure did for, I guess, everybody who's used the songs. And so it was, for me, a lesson in the power of song. Yeah. What you can do with music. The power of song has always impressed me. The power to, especially the power to unite. When you're in a strange place, okay, I'm in a small town, Philippines or somewhere, whatever. The audience comes in, they know each other, but they don't know you. And you got to do something. And you look around and somehow, whatever you do, it should be chosen with the thought that they're going to be able to be drawn into it. Yeah. And either sing along with you ultimately, or at least they came from work, and this one came from school, and that one came from there. But they walk in and sit down together, and now you put the music out. Well, they become a congregation. They actually do that as surely as you can bet on. I mean, it just does that. People want to be part of the music, and the music goes right to their vulnerable spots in their heart, and they go, okay.
El 18 de julio, en el patio de un convento, el pueblo madrileño fundó el 5º regimiento. Venga, jaleo, jaleo.
I just made up a thing one night. I was like, what am I going to say? So, okay, I want to thank you. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being here tonight, whatever. I want to, some repeating thing. And that everybody can do that. Yeah. So they repeat it with you, and then you have a phrase at the end that you make up as you're going. Then I come up with these songs like, on the way to the gig, on the way to the demo, where there's thousands of people, I don't have the right song yet. I want to celebrate the fact that these particular soldiers have said no and they're not going to go to Vietnam.
Right, yeah.
You know. So I said, let's see, it takes a real man to say no. It takes a real man to say I won't go. It takes a real man to say no. Hell no, I won't go. And it's hell no, I won't go. And we just ain't gonna go.
If you love your Uncle Sam, bring him home, bring him home. Stop the war in Vietnam, bring him home, bring him home. 40
It's soul food for me, you know. It is spiritual nourishment to be able to sing with a lot of people together. And somehow it verifies the fact that you're all in the same world, in the same movement, with the same problems, and need to find the resources to confront them together somehow. Bruce, you know something? Every time this comes, I read the whole thing cover to cover.
Yeah.
It's got so much interesting information, not just about the Lincoln Brigade and the International Brigade, but there's so much humanity reflected in this guy, Abe Osheroff. At the time that he decided to join the Abraham Lincoln Brigade, he was 20 or 21 or something. And he was on a boat that was going to Spain.
Oh, yeah.
And it was torpedoed and went down. And he swam 2 miles to get to dry land to join the brigade. Yeah. And, well, I met Abe raising money to go to Mississippi. I was going with this to sing some songs at the Freedom Schools. And he was going to go and build a community center in Holmes County because the original one had been burned down, I think. I was in Holmes County and I see this white guy up there hammering a whole construction there, and that's Abe up there. And I said, "Hey, don't I know you?" He said, "Yeah, I know you from the fundraising party or the concert that raised money to build this thing." He was staying with Hartman Turnbow, right? Hartman Turnbow, he went with a group of 14 people to go down to the courthouse to register together. So they get there, and the question is, well, all right, which of you people are going to step forward? Well, who wants to register to vote? Ha ha ha! And they're all guns and Turnbow steps out of the group of 14, and he says, "I'm going to register to vote. I am here to register or to die." He literally meant it. He was there he brought a gun, and he would have used it. And it inspired people all through Mississippi. I'm here to register or to die. Together we can move mountains. Oh yeah. Alone we can't move hell. Or together we can move mountains. Alone we can't move hell. Makes me want to say something about why remember the brigades? Yeah. Why think about it anymore? It's all in the past, way long time ago. Who cares, someone could say. Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you, if you don't know anything about those times, you're going to be making a lot of missteps in your present life. Yeah. Because it's part of the foundation, really, of where we're at. And there's a sense of nowadays, of me, I got to take care of my problems, my family, or my this, and that's it. And that didn't used to be so ironclad, How many people in those days do you know who wanted to go and work in some volunteer position in some volunteer group, you know, like Mississippi, like the people who went to help the registration of votes. And it was, why would they do that? You know, why? They don't have to do it. It's not going to make an ounce of difference in their income, probably negative. The idea of volunteering to do something that's beyond and bigger than I am or you are is almost lost. You know, it seems like people say, why would you do that? You know, well, let me tell you why I would do that. I would do that because it makes me feel like I'm in the world. Things matter to me. We are all together. Why would I do it? Because what the hell else is my life worth? Making a commitment to something for life, like I'm going to confront racism whenever I see it, because I hate living in a world of racism and racists. Okay, there's a way of modeling your life. So something like the International Brigades, you know, the call goes out, well, how does that get organized? For one thing, there was the Communist International at the time, which was too bad we don't have it anymore. But the International Brigade, okay, people came from 52 countries. They came saying goodbye to their mom and their pop, their girlfriend, not knowing if they'll ever come back. They've tried to teach them people are bad and everybody's selfish. And if you don't just think of yourself, there's something wrong with you. Yeah. People have asked you, why would you do that? Yeah. I want to say, well, why wouldn't you? Yeah. Why wouldn't you? You have a possibility to give real meaning to your life. You know, why would you want to throw that away? To me, it's a totally natural thing that a lot of people involved with the brigades had to do with the Mississippi Freedom Schools. Yeah. And I thought everyone was good when I was young. I was very disappointed to find that they weren't. Yeah. That there were some really, really bad ones out there. But listen, there's a lot more good ones. I got that deeply inside. I know that.
When the Union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what forth on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the Union makes us strong. Ba-ba-da. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. The Union makes us strong.
It is we who plowed the prairies, built the cities where they trade, dug the mines, built the factories, endless miles of railroad laid. Now we stand outcast and starving amid the wonders we have made. But in union, we are strong.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. The Union makes us strong. In our hands is placed a power greater than their hoarded gold.
Greater than the might of atoms, magnified 1,000-fold. Can bring to birth a new world
from the ashes of the old. For the Union we are strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the Union makes us strong.
Yes.
All right.
Greetings, comrades. Congratulations to Alba for another year of keeping the flame alive. And thank you for inviting me to say a few words. In recognition of June Gibson, of My Brother's Keeper, and the Open Arms Clinic, two extraordinary organizations, by the way. I wanted to use this time to honor Mississippi's history of freedom fighters and their connections to Spain. I decided to steal the title of James Yates's book, From Mississippi to Madrid. Of course, for Yates, it's a story of his journey to becoming an American radical. For me, the title really indicates parallels and connections. And some of those parallels and connections are personal. My sister, for example, Makani Temba, moved to Jackson deliberately recently to help her friends and comrades build a new society there. I've long considered Mississippi and Spain as two of the finest examples of radical possibility, places where a vision of social democracy emerged that could have been and still could be a model for the world. And we don't always think of Mississippi or the US South in the same way. It's often derided as a kind of political backwater, a place of reaction, home of Trumpism, on and on and on. But we don't know our history. The truth is, like Spain, fascism was a ruling class response to the revolutionary insurgency of working people in Mississippi, especially Black working people. The South has long been and continues to be the epicenter of the country's most radical democratic movements, Reconstruction, populism, biracial labor struggles, the Poor People's Campaign today and 50 years ago. Jim Crow, lynching, and disfranchisement, what I'm calling fascism, were designed to crush interracial movements fighting to expand democracy, protect the rights of working people, redistribute land, dismantle the plantation oligarchy, and guarantee free education and healthcare. Mississippi and other southern states, in fact, passed the most draconian anti-labor, anti-Black, anti-immigrant laws, not because they were conservative states, on the contrary, but in order to suppress a radical vision. And they only succeeded because they were able to eliminate nearly half the electorate. I mean, half the people couldn't vote. And as we know, racism worked. Racism convinced white workers that their interests aligned closer to the ruling classes than to Black and Indigenous peoples. Now, it may seem strange to say that fascism first emerged in the United States and the US South long before it arose in Europe, but Black members of the Lincoln Brigade had been saying it the moment they set foot on Spanish soil. As Walter Garland put it, quote, "We can't forget for a minute that the oppression of the Negro is nothing more than a very concrete form, the clearest expression of fascism. In other words, we saw in Spain those who chain us in America to cotton fields and brooms." Some also saw in Spain how racism was used to undermine the prospects of solidarity. Spanish colonialism and anti-Black racism against the Moors ensured that North Africans ended up fighting for Franco. Langston Hughes wrote a beautiful poem titled Letter from Spain that really kind of captures this contradiction. And he wrote, "We captured a wounded Moor today. He was just as dark as me. I said, 'Boy, what you been doing here, fighting against the free?'" Both Spain and Mississippi, in fact, enjoyed the benefits of brigades, as it were, that is, volunteers who came there to fight for freedom and democracy. And of course, in Spain, there was the Lincoln Brigade, the Washington Brigade, the Garibaldis, and on and on and on. And in Mississippi, there was the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. There was Freedom Summer and the Republic of New Africa. And in the Lincoln Brigade, some of the volunteers were from Mississippi, like Elyard Luciel McDaniel, who was from Lumberton, just south of Hattiesburg. And of course, there was James Yates, born in 1906 in Quitman, Mississippi. He was influenced by his uncle, who was a follower of Marcus Garvey, who eventually moved to the all-Black town of Boldy, Oklahoma. Yates was nourished on stories of another uncle of his who once defended his family from the Klan with guns, and of the Irish immigrant neighbor who gave him the ammunition. He would eventually migrate to Chicago, join the labor movement and the Communist Party, and then go off to Spain. But Quitman is a very special place. Quitman, in the neighboring town of Stonewall, for example, is where in 2015, the community mobilized to demand justice for Jonathan Sanders, a 39-year-old Black man choked to death by police while riding a horse and buggy. In so many ways, the Mississippi movement, SNCC, the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, the Mississippi Freedom Labor Union, fought for a social and economic justice agenda that was no different from that of the Republican anti-fascist forces in Spain. That is, they fought for economic justice, for the redistribution of land and wealth, and for workers' power. The provisional government of the Republic of New Africa established its base in Mississippi around 1971 and purchased land, set up cooperative farms, built institutions, and despite relentless state repression, including a shootout, the Republic of New Africa took root in the city of Jackson, Mississippi. Then in 2013, the late Chokwe Lumumba, a radical lawyer and leader of the New African People's Organization in the Malcolm X grassroots movement, was elected. It was a very historical election when he was elected mayor of Jackson. He was part of a movement that envisioned the Jackson Plan, designed to transform the city into a model of radical social democracy by establishing a solidarity economy, very much like that of the Mondragon Corporation in Spain's Basque region, through worker cooperatives, eco-friendly community gardens, inexpensive, energy-efficient housing, and developing community and conservation land trusts to make land available for all, especially to house the homeless. He also launched people's assemblies, which are these open meetings to discuss community needs, ensure democratic participation, and mobilize working people to win political power, and that they did. The people's assemblies were responsible for Chokwe Lumumba's victory, as well as the election of Jackson's current mayor, his son, Chokwe Antar Lumumba. Rukia Lumumba, Antar's sister, founded the People's Advocacy Institute, which advances the transformative justice agenda to resist mass criminalization, build collective political and economic power, and promote environmental sustainability, as well as, community wealth, safety, and racial, gender, and sexual equality. Let me end with the prescient words of James Yates, who wrote in his book, "I was just beginning to learn about the reality of Spain and Europe, but I knew what was at stake. There, the poor, the peasants, the workers, and the unions, the socialists and communists, together had won an election against the big landowners, the monarchy, and the right-wingers in the military. It was a kind of victory that would have brought Black people to the top levels of government if such an election had been won in the USA. A Black man would be governor of Mississippi. The new government in Spain was dividing its wealth with the peasants. Unions were organizing, and each factory and social services were being introduced. Spain was the perfect example of the world I dreamed of." The world James Yates dreamed of is struggling to this day to come into being in places like Mississippi, thanks to the hard work of June Gibson and My Brother's Keeper, the Open Arms Clinic, both organizations making possible a liberatory future for the LGBTQ community, the People's Advocacy Institute, and of course, ALBA. This is a legacy of the Spanish Civil War. It is the legacy of the Black struggle to democratize the United States and ultimately the world. And of course, it's not over. Free the land. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Now it's almost time to hear from June Gibson and the Puffin Human Rights Award winners. Each year, the Puffin Foundation and the Abraham Lincoln Brigade Archives award $100,000 to an organization involved in the struggle for human rights. Human rights investigator Kate Doyle, recipient of the 2012 Alba Puffin Award for her work that led to the prosecution of Guatemalan dictator Rios Montt, usually introduces the award recipients. But this year she is in Mexico working on a human rights case involving the forced disappearance of 43 students. In an email, she explains how My Brother's Keeper was chosen for this year's award. We agreed that racial disparities in healthcare would be one of the issues we would consider for the Activism Prize, mainly due to the horrifying disparities in health and healthcare that the COVID-19 crisis so brutally underscored. We've also talked about finding people working on the front line of the issues we want to highlight, real grassroots activists, not just large, well-funded organizations or already famous human rights advocates. As I read about My Brother's Keeper, I was really impressed by how they bored down deep into their community to educate people, give them tools to improve their health, and connect them to networks of otherwise affected people for mutual aid. My Brother's Keeper began in 1999 in response to the HIV crisis affecting African American gay men in Jackson, Mississippi. White HIV rates were declining for white Americans. The disease at the same time was decimating the Black community, particularly in the South, where there was a major disparity of health services. My Brother's Keeper started with community workers, primarily lay people, ex-addicts, HIV survivors, making home visits, offering condoms and moral support. When June Gibson started My Brother's Keeper in 2011, the PrEP pill, which treats and prevents HIV, was transforming the HIV landscape away from community groups. Under Gibson's leadership, they opened the first LGBTQ+ healthcare clinic in the state of Mississippi. They now have multiple offices and comprehensive full-service healthcare centers, with a mobile clinic providing services to all Mississippi. The LGBT community is still their core constituency, but they serve people from all communities. June Gibson, the CEO of My Brother's Keeper, and Deja Abdul Haq, the Director of Operations, visited us in the Bay Area. You'll get to hear them talk about their organization's inspiring accomplishments. But first, we'll hear from the daughter of Lincoln Brigade vet Joan Balter. She read a tribute to the LGBT members of the Veterans of the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. Now let's hear Joan, and then My Brother's Keeper.
I'm Joan Balter, the proud daughter of Lincoln Brigade vet Martin Balter. Balter was my mother's maiden name, and my father took it to be able to work and support the family. He was very accepting of me and very welcoming of my partner when I came out, and also supported my unconventional choice to become a violin maker when that had not been previously a profession for women in the United States. It gives me great pleasure to acknowledge the heroic contributions that the following gay Lincoln vets made to the cause. There were undoubtedly other LGBT vets, but these are the ones we know about. Bill Aalto, a Finnish American from the Bronx, was regarded by his colleagues as one of the finest soldiers in the international brigades. He worked in demolition on secret and dangerous missions behind enemy lines. Amongst his credits was the liberation of a Franco prison camp, freeing over 300 Republican prisoners of war. He returned to New York as a hero and joined William Donovan's elite OSS predecessor of the CIA, along with other former Lincoln vets. Sadly, his former colleagues outed him and refused to work with him, forcing the OSS to dismiss him. There is speculation that they may have done this out of professional jealousy and for opportunistic reasons as much as out of homophobia. Alto returned to the U.S. Army as a Special Forces trainer. During a training exercise, one of the officers dropped a hand grenade after pulling the pin. Alto grabbed the grenade to save those around him and lost his right hand when the grenade exploded. Alto later attended Columbia University, wrote poetry that was published in New Masses, and had an extended personal relationship with the great poet W.H. Auden. He died of alcohol-related illness in 1958. David McKelvey White, the son of an Ohio governor, was an English instructor at Brooklyn College in New York when he volunteered to serve in Spain. Milton Wolfe remembered him as a slender but tough soldier in the machine gun company at Brunete. He was repatriated in 1937 to do political work. He helped found the Veterans of Abraham Lincoln Brigade in 1937 and took over the leadership of the Friends of Abraham Lincoln Brigade. He was highly respected amongst the families of the vets, but faced threats of expulsion from the Communist Party for his homosexuality. He committed suicide in 1945. Some of his papers are held by the New York Public Library. Lincoln vets David Gills from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and John Mayle from San Francisco sailed on the same boat, arriving in Spain in October of 1937. They were captured in Gandesa during the Great Retreats of 1938 and held as prisoners of war. They returned to the United States in May 1939, and together they opened a florist shop. Gills died in 1982, but Mayle's death is not recorded in the archives. George Redlick was underage when he went to Spain from Chicago. He served with the medical group for 6 months in 1937, but was repatriated because of his age and his mother's illness. He worked as an artist for the New Deal's WPA project, and 13 of his paintings from that project are in the Chicago Art Institute collection. He was known in the militant left wing of his local artist colony as gay. He was married and had a child. In 1941, he was killed in an automobile accident.
We opened Open Arms Healthcare Center in 2013, and we opened it as the first and only LGBT primary healthcare clinic in the state of Mississippi. It was a scary process, again, because we're already Black, that's one issue, but now it's going to be a gay clinic. There's going to be an LGBT clinic in this state, and how is that going to be received? And because, mind you, where they can, pretend like they don't have any race issues. When it comes to the LGBT world, there's no hiding it. This is an open disdain for a group of people. So I know this to be true. So if they're going to openly disdain this group of people, they're going to openly hate them, they're going to create rules and policies, religious acts, all of these things to make sure this person doesn't get what they need, how are they going to feel about a clinic that serviced this community? So it was really scary, but we did it. And I'm proud to say that it worked. It worked. It was a change for healthcare. It was in such a way that other clinics, other doctors wanted to see the clinic. They wanted to see what we were going to do. They wanted to see how we were going to do it. And we were commended for our bravery in taking on the task to work with a community that no one else really wanted to work with. Or if they did work with them, they didn't want them to come back. They didn't treat them well. They kept them in hiding. They made sure that if they showed up for an appointment, that they wouldn't come for the next one. And so we opened this facility with an mission of services, but also out of the idea of loving the community. So in the beginning, we did an assessment with the community at Pride. We host Jackson Black Pride every year. So we did an assessment with the community, and they told us what they wanted. They told us the types of services that they wanted. We asked, if we had an LGBT clinic, would you come? And they told us that they would. The colors, the name, everything about that clinic was designed by the community. So it's their clinic. And it's our goal to make sure that we give them what they want. When we started, we were basically HIV prevention, which was going to be PrEP, and then we were doing our program called Becoming a Healthier You. The Becoming a Healthier You is going to be a comprehensive program that does glucose, cholesterol, BMI, blood pressure, HIV, syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, Hep C, and Hep B for free. And so it's our introductory program. It invites them into healthcare. You're able to learn about your chronic, your reproductive health, to figure out where you are, what issues you may be having. And so now you're part of healthcare. And you've had what can be considered a complete physical for free. And that was the first thing they wanted. They wanted to feel that they could come to a place and get what they need without the fear of insurance and payments and how does this work and not understanding the process. So that's how we started. We quickly realized that we needed case management. Someone had to connect them to other services. And navigating patients through the healthcare system is a tough job. Because again, it's when you are learning, when you do have health literacy, it can be a rough process to get through healthcare. But when you have low health literacy, it can be impossible and scary. And so we went into case management, and then it continued to bloom from there. We added more doctors. We became more comprehensive. We added a pharmacy. So we have our on-site pharmacy. We added mental health, transportation. So we have basically a one-stop shop clinic. I can actually say they loved it. The clinic is beautiful, and it's beautiful on purpose. We wanted to have a place where when someone walked in the room that they felt like they belonged there. And I actually had a patient that tell me, she said, "This is really pretty." She said, "So nice." She said, "I can bring my mama with me." And I never thought about the fact that you weren't comfortable taking your parent to the doctor with you because of where you would go, the facility, or how the people would treat you. So she said, "I can bring my mom here." And I thought that was, if I hadn't accomplished anything, I had at least accomplished a place that was safe. That the community that I wanted to serve says, this is a place that I can receive services. And so it just was a change for us. And the staff, we had so many things to learn. We had to learn pronouns. Oh, we were horrible in the beginning. I had to make a public apology because we were messing up pronouns left and right. Again, we were used to really just being in the Black gay world with men. And now we're doing trans, we're doing women, we're seeing everyone, intersex, everyone's coming. And we have no idea how to change it up. So we had to figure out pronouns, and we had to incorporate that in. We had to give people, if you're Jane today, that's awesome. If you're John tomorrow, that's even better. We're so naive. We thought it'd be easy. Like, yeah, everyone, give me the L, the G, the G, P. Come on. No. That's not how it works. And we found that out really quickly in the process, that we had to make sure that everyone felt safe, whether you were gay, whether you were straight, whether you were Black, whether you were white. We had to create a systems and rules around how service is going to be provided here. The best day of my life was the day I walked in and I saw a guy who I knew he was heterosexual, and a transgender sitting on the sofa together. No one was looking at each other side-eyed. It was there was no animosity. It wasn't an acrimonious relationship. They were sitting there together waiting on their services, and they were fine.
In the beginning, the idea was to make sure that this was a safe space. It was the first safe space clinic in the Southeast. And the idea was, for those that have been disenfranchised the most and the longest, we want to make sure that that community knows you are welcomed here. And so in the beginning, that was how we reached and where we established. And after that, I think all of our, the LGBT plus family, they went home and told their families. And people living positive were telling, people that were HIV negative, if you just want quality clinical care, these people are very serious when they talk about equity. So that's when it started to grow beyond demographics. It just became the epicenter of equitable care.
So how do we do it? We hired the people from the community, and they got to see us work together. They got to see us do things together. And so that kind of created if you're all doing it, we can do it too. And again, at the clinic, we have Black gay men, we have lesbians, we have trans, we have heterosexual men and women. We have the whole smorgasbord. So when you walk in, the smorgasbord is going to welcome you, and they're going to give you the services. And so you find yourself, it's kind of hard to say, I'm going to go here, but I don't want to be around them. And if you come here, if you come to Open Arms Healthcare Center, you're going to be around everyone. And we don't tolerate any level of disrespect to our patients from other patients or from the staff. So it's a very strict rule on give people what they ask for with a smile. So the level of services that we provided had to grow. And mind you, we're hiring people from the community. So this isn't typically what they were expecting. And everyone didn't make the process, but skills level, they had to come up. If you were a community person who typically did outreach, now I need you to have phlebotomy. So I'm going to get you trained in phlebotomy. If you are someone who worked as an outreach worker, but now you may need to do case management. So I need you to go and get skills for case management. We have to make sure they get the opportunity to go to school, that they get the opportunity for certifications. I don't want to block what you're trying to do as a person to improve yourself by saying, I need you at work 40 hours a week. I think that we can be flexible about your time if you're going somewhere to be better.
At My Brother's Keeper, we are constantly making sure that the staff looks like the community. And if you are a person of color in Mississippi, whether you're gay, straight, male or female, you understand how it feels to know that you should have a shot, but you don't have the tools to get that shot. So you are a product of an underfunded school, so you're undereducated, you're underemployed because you're undereducated, and that creates a whole stream of other problems, and eventually they do impact your health care. But if you go into those same communities and hire someone who doesn't necessarily have all of the immediate skills to do the job, but you know they have the capacity to learn, you give them that capacity. You build their capacity to serve. They become vital parts of the program. You're focusing on the individual, knowing that every success that a community has is based on the contributions of the individual. You want to increase their capacity to make impactful contributions.
When you invest in your people who represent the community, you strengthen the community. The community sees themselves as someone who can do it. Mind you, Black gay men walk into a clinic and see other Black gay men doing that work. They see them, this is something that's attainable. You know, you have no idea sometimes when you've been disenfranchised from a system for so long, it feels unattainable. That you can't be anything else but McDonald's. You can't be anything else but a factory worker. So stepping into My Brother's Keeper, Open Arms, and you see these people who you know from the community, you know from outside, and you see that they've changed their lives, it's powerful for not only the staff, but for the community, that this can now be attainable. My Brother's Keeper and Open Arms Healthcare Center, we operate statewide. And we do it through multiple mechanisms. On the My Brother's Keeper end, we're more training, we're more prevention, and My Brother's Keeper is actually more nationwide. We get funding from the CDC to be able to teach organizations to kind of be like us, to use our model, to understand how to get your revenue, how to merge your services, how to leverage programs to be able to sustain who you are. So that's on the My Brother's Keeper end. So we're everywhere with My Brother's Keeper. With Open Arms, we have a statewide mobile clinic. So we travel throughout the state providing the Becoming a Healthier You services. That's one of our most popular programs, in fact. It's our flagship program. But we're able to go from north, south, east, and west in this 38-foot double exam room clinic that when you see it, you can't miss it. It's very bright and colorful. It has the Open Arms man on it. And now that we're in the vaccination era, we're taking that same mobile clinic and we're going throughout the entire state and we're providing vaccinations. And it's working. The mobile has always worked, but not as well as it's working now. We know we need vaccinations. We know we have to address COVID, but we're merging other health disparities into that. So we're not just doing COVID. We're still doing HIV. We're still doing STDs. We're still doing Hep C. We're still checking your blood pressure. So we've merged COVID and everything else that we do on that mobile clinic, and we go statewide and provide those services. The growth of the organization, it has not been easy. When I say we're doing vaccinations and when I say we've been able to get the grants and we've been able to do more, I had to kick the door in. They weren't just saying, come on in, My Brother's Keeper, and get it. No, we had to make them realize that we were there. And I also had to position myself to not be a person who came to the table asking, but I had to know what I could bring. So when I would get there, it's like, this is what My Brother's Keeper can do for you. This is what Open Arms Healthcare Center can do for you. And that's how we were able to grow. But it wasn't a kind process, I would say that.
I think that's another beauty of Open Arms, being dedicated to making sure that we're building our capacity to always be at the table. We're at the table on behalf of the communities that we serve. If we are not at the table on a national level, just like when MBK started, it took someone taking our story to the national level. When we received the notification that we were going to be awarded this year, it was a proud moment for us because it was an instant connection to people who believe that people deserve the best of things. All people, all around the world, no matter who you are or where you live or how you love or the flesh of your skin or the bend of your hair, as human beings, we all have rights to live well and to be in the company of people and a history that, have been doing that long before I was born. It's encouraging, and we hope that we're able to do the type of work that impacts the future the way that ALBA has.
Well, I'm just moved and inspired every time I watch that. I'm sorry about the technical interruption there, but don't worry, you're going to get to hear some more from Deja, who got interrupted in June. Because after the interview with June and Deja, we all went to a celebration of the Lincoln Brigade Monument on San Francisco's Embarcadero. The event was organized by Martha Olson Draki and Peter Hartzman, Children of the Vets, and brigade supporters like Len Sow and Nancy Sow, and music by Bruce Barthel. We can only play a snippet of the hour-long event, but a complete version, including the speeches, red carnation ceremony, and interviews with some of the attendees, will be posted on the ALBA website. During the event, people placed carnations on the monument to remember particular volunteers. For those of you watching now, is your chance to place the name of vets you wish to honor in the chat. Now let's watch the clip.
No passerons.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to have to channel Pete Seeger, I think, so that we're audible. All right. Okay. En los frentes de Jarama, en los frentes de Jarama, no tenemos ni aviones, ni tanques, ni camiones. Ay, Manuela, no tenemos ni aviones, ni tanques, ni cañones. Ay, Manuela. There we go. Okay.
We have now two special guests here. This year, the Puffin Foundation gave us Human Rights Award to a group from Mississippi, My Brother's Keeper. And we have the CEO of it, June Gibson, here.
Well, I'm so honored to be invited to this event. I mean, this monument, the people, and what ALBA stands for is truly valuable to the community in which we serve, and I'm just truly pleased to be here. And after learning more about ALBA and talking with Steve and Richard and Peter and Nancy and Linda, I have a new appreciation for what ALBA does. But for my very first introduction, and when I learned about it, it actually prompted an emotional response for me. And I know you don't know me, but I'm not an emotional chick. I try to keep things compartmentalized, and I don't really get emotional. But the night that I found out that we would be the recipients of the ALBA Puffin Human Rights Award, I actually shedded tears. Now, if you've never been invisible, you may not understand why I cried. You may not understand why I was emotional. But for the very first time, I felt as if we were being seen for not only what we do, but who we are, for the work that we're so passionate and so dedicated to doing. But then to be seen by an organization like ALBA, an organization that's mission, passion, and dedication is rooted in being on the right side of history. Look, it's more valuable than what you probably would ever perceive. It is something that highlights an organization, it highlights a person, and it makes us, it gives us the strength and power to keep going on. And I am so thankful for everything that you have done. Thank you. You are welcome.
My name is Deja. I too am a part of the MBK Open Arms family, but before that I'm a Mississippian. And when I started to work with the organization, because we do so much data work, colored maps always get my attention. And I was in Detroit at the African American Museum and I saw a map that looked like health disparities. But then I thought, why would a health disparity map be in the museum? And I went back and it wasn't a health disparity map. It was an 1860 slave population map. And from my perspective, it looked just like the obesity map, the hypertension map, the HIV map, the STI map, now the COVID map. There are a lot of scientists that believe the color of your flesh or the DNA in your system make you ineligible for basic rights. And that's wrong. No matter who you are, how you love, where you live, you deserve basic rights. And there are some people that aren't as skilled at articulating the reason they should have that right. They don't sing the song, they don't write the poem, they can't forge a way, but ALBA did that for those who couldn't. We do that work for those who couldn't. And though the veterans are no longer here, you can feel the spirit of do for your brother in this space. And we are truly honored to be a part of this spectacular moment. Thank you so much.
I think many of us here remember the years that this post here in the Bay Area had big events, and it was like going to church once a year, and there were hundreds, if not sometimes 1,000 people, and good people, and good stories, and important work that was highlighted year after year. And that's changing, we know. We have instead a monument, and we have the work of ALBA, and we have really wonderful people like my brother's keeper who are joining in the same way that we were together in that time. I think it's a new way of carrying on. So now we'd like to invite you to lay a carnation on the monument. For those who don't know, the red carnation symbolized for a lot of years the power of the International Brigade, the power of people from all these countries coming together in the world to fight fascism. And we use it today to honor the monument and each other for carrying this on. To the strength of all of us here today, and to the veterans of the Abraham Lincoln Brigade, Leonard Olson, vive!
It's a place that we all know so well, where we all learn
to cross the freedom, and so many of our brave comrades fell. We are proud of the Lincoln Battalion
and the fight for Madrid that it made. There they fought like true sons of the people,
as a part of the 50th Brigade.
I am honored to put this carnation here in celebration of your families.
Spain has been etched in the hearts of our generation. and carried all around like a terrible wound. Spain gave us our first taste of defeat, and because of her, we discovered with an enduring shock that one can be right and still be defeated, that sheer force can trample the human spirit underfoot, and there are times when courage goes unrewarded. But without a doubt, this explains why so many people the world over have experienced the Spanish drama as their own personal tragedy. When we hear about the way that your forefathers fought, so did ours, and so did others across the world. And it's a shame that a decent idea about freedom to everyone, some people are allergic to that. But I think it's also amazing that we've dedicated ourselves to being the antidote to that type of stupidity. So for every brigade, sung and unsung, every warrior, rewarded and unrewarded, in the East, in the South, in the West, in Spain, for those that fought so that we could continue the fight. I love you.
Where we all lost to freedom, and so many of our brave comrades fell, and so many of our brave comrades fell.
Thanks, everyone, for attending. By the end of October, we should have a video of the entire monument event, including the interviews of the family members, friends of the vets, and on ALBA's website. You can also check the site for full roster of upcoming ALBA programs. We'll also have a replay of this event you just saw. So if you want to watch, you'll be able to see all the speeches uninterrupted. You know, technology is wonderful, but occasionally it doesn't work quite the way you'd want. So for more information about My Brother's Keeper, you can go to their website, mbkinc.org, or Open Arms Health Care Center at oahcc.org. And keep an eye out next summer for The 9 Lives of Barbara Dane. And stay tuned after the credits for the slideshow of portraits of the Lincoln vets, including vets who died in Spain. Okay, so let's roll the credits and see you next year.
We shut the strong gates and we took to the
There's a valley in Spain called Jarama. It's a place that we all know so well. It was there that we fought against the fascists. We saw a peaceful valley turn to hell. From this valley they say we are going, but don't hasten to bid us adieu. Even though we lost the battle at Jarama, we'll set this valley free for we're through. We were men of the Lincoln Battalion. We're proud of the fight that we made. We know that you people of the valley will remember our Lincoln Brigade. From this valley they say we are going, but don't hasten to bid us adieu. Even though we lost that battle at Jarama, we will set this valley free for we're through. You will never find peace with these fascists. You will never find friends such as we. So remember that valley of Jarama and the people that'll set that valley free. From this valley in Spain called Jarama, it's a place that we all know so well. It was there that we fought against the fascists. We saw a peaceful valley turn to hell. From this valley they say that we're going. Don't hasten to bid us adieu. Even though we lost the battle at Jarama, we'll set this valley free for we're through. All this world is like this valley called Jarama, so green and so bright and so fair. No fascist can dwell in our valley, nor breathe in our new freedom's air. From this valley they say that we're going. Do not hasten to bid us adieu. Even though we lost the battle at Jarama, we'll set this valley free for we're through.
Viva la quinta brigada, rumbala, rumbala, rumbala. Viva la quinta brigada, rumbala, rumbala, rumbala. Que sea cubierta de gloria, ay Manuela, ay Manuela. Que sea cubierta de gloria, ay Manuela, ay Manuela. Luchamos contra los moros, rumbala, rumbala, rumbala. Luchamos contra los moros, rumbala, rumbala, rumbala. Mercenarios y fascistas, ay Manuela, ay Manuela. Mercenarios y fascistas, ay Manuela, ay Manuela. Solo es nuestro deseo, rumbala, rumbala, rumbala. Solo es nuestro deseo, rumbala, rumbala, rumbala. Acaba con el fascismo, ay Manuela, ay Manuela. Acaba con el fascismo, ay Manuela, ay Manuela. En los frentes de Jarama, rumbala, rumbala, rumbala. En los frentes de Jarama, rumbala, rumbala, rumbala. No tenemos ni aviones, ni tanques, ni cañones, ay Manuela. No tenemos ni aviones, ni tanques, ni cañones, ay Manuela. Ya salimos de España, rumbala, rumbala, rumbala. Ya salimos de España, rumbala, rumbala, rumbala. A luchar en otros frentes, ay Manuela, ay Manuela. A luchar en otros frentes, ay Manuela, ay Manuela.